Hi there, Lisa Rana here, and welcome to another Assemble This video. Today's card is all about this super cute watercolor birthday card and a fun cloud background to make these cute little guys look like they're just floating away in the sky. I'm featuring the Unity Stamp Company Happy and Hedgie stamp set with the darling hedgehog and bunny holding the balloons. Plus, I matched it with some sentiments from Hugs, Kisses, and Birthday Wishes sentiment kit. So I'm starting out with some watercoloring. I'm going to be using my distress markers and then also some Nina cardstock. This is a 110-pound cardstock, and it's not my first choice. I think I've done this before and I had a brilliant idea to try it again, and that was a bad idea. This really doesn't allow the watercolors to move on the paper, so I wouldn't recommend this paper in the future. If I would suggest something like Canson XL or something like Bristol. That just allows these watercolors to move easier, and it doesn't pill up if you use too much water. I made it work, but like I said, it's just not my favorite, so I won't do it again. So I have two methods going on here. I first tried applying my marker directly to the paper and then blending that out with some water from my water brush, and it didn't move. So for this particular paper, I have to use two different techniques in order to get that watercolor look. I'm directly applying the marker in a line to create the shadow that I want, and then also rubbing it onto an acrylic block, adding a bit of water, and then using that to blend it out. And that just creates the watercolor look I'm going for. I do actually like the way it turned out on this paper. It's just not an easy effect. It just takes a little more work than I prefer. So I just rather use some watercolor paper next time. So again, I applied that ink directly to paper in order to create the shadow, and then I'm using the ink I'm picking up from the acrylic block to blend that out and to create a lighter effect as it moves across the image, like in those pajamas that I'm coloring. So the one side is darker where the shadow is, and then the other side is lighter where the light is hitting and making it brighter. So I'm just moving along and coloring in his pajamas. I'm going to use two colors of pink, just a light color here first, and then later on I'll add a little bit of a darker shadow when I move to that color. Isn't he cute with those little pajamas? I just love the polka dot pajamas. I'm guessing they're pajamas, I don't know. But that's what I like to think he's wearing, his pajamas. A hedgehog in pajamas, like, that's really cute. So now that the hedgehog is all colored up, I'm going to move on to the balloons. Doing a little bit of orange here, and again using the same technique, applying my marker directly to paper and then picking up the ink from an acrylic block with some water to kind of blend it out. This marker really needed to be re-inked, so I'm really have to work a little bit harder with the orange here. But again, I don't know, I just really like the way it turned out on this paper. As hard as I am working to make it happen, it has a fun little effect on the watercolor. Next, I'm moving on to a little bit of green, and I decided to do two balloons in orange, two balloons in green, and then the last two will be in blue and pink. I wanted to balance out the pajama colors, and I wanted to add in a little bit more of an interest with the orange and the green, which will match the papers that I'm going to use later. So it was a great way to kind of balance out the look I'm going for by doing two of the orange, two of the green, and now I'm moving on to the blue, and then last will be a bit of a pink. This one I didn't clean off my brush well enough, so it ended up picking up a bit of green, which I don't mind. It ended up looking good. It blended later when it dried, so you can't see it as much. So I'm not so mad at how that turned out. And then last, I'm going to do, again, a bit of pink. just again to pull up the colors from the pajamas. This is a darker pink, so this is where I'm adding in a bit of shadow to those polka dots. Just adding it to the bottom like I am to the balloon. Just a little bit of a shadow at the bottom edge of those polka dots. And here I'm just shading in that balloon. And then since I have that pink out, I'm going to use it to add a little bit of pink to his cute cheeks. And it layers beautifully over the colors before because they're dry. And that's how watercolors work best. If you want to color on top of something else, you need to let it dry, and then that color will kind of stay on top of the previous color without blending in and bleeding all over the place. And last, I'm just going to add a bit of a shadow with this gray color. I'm shadowing in around the balloons, around each one, just so they pop a little bit, and then also the strings. And then just adding a bit of shadow around the hedgehog as well, just so he kind of pops and looks like he's 3D and not so flat on the paper. And last, I'm going to add in a little bit of highlight. This is not something I normally do, but I thought it would be fun since these images are so cute. Just adding a bit of highlight to those balloons, a little bit to his cheeks. I added 3 little dots, and then adding a little bit of highlight to his fur as well. And that's just a white gel pen, just to add highlight. Next, I'm moving on to create the background. I created some masks. This is just copy paper. I stamped my image on copy paper and then trimmed those out really close to the lines, and then gluing that down just with some repositional tape adhesive. And now I'm going to use 2 colors of Distress inks to create the cloud background. I have this fun stencil from My Favorite Things. You could also create your own just by using some scissors and to create a bubble pattern. If you have some bubble edge die cuts, you could also use those as well. So you don't actually have to have the stencil to create this. You could create your own, but it does make it super easy to make this cloud background. And again, I'm using 2 colors to create some interest, and I like the way these 2 blues and greens kind of go together. So I'm just moving my stencil up as I go along, picking blue, picking a little bit of green, not really thinking about it too hard, just kind of using them both. And I'm moving the stencil, creating different shapes as I go along, just so I don't have the same shape over and over again. This just, again, creates more interest and a little more kind of a subtle pattern to the background. And now that I'm done, I'm just going to run the blue around my edges just to kind of blend everything together. And I'm using makeup brushes. I got these off Amazon. They're really cheap, and I'm really loving the way that they work. They clean really easy, and I don't have to worry about the inks blending together. I just rub it off on a baby wipe, and I'm ready to go. So let's just remove our masks and see how cute our little image is. So to finish the card off, I have a scalloped piece of pattern paper. I thought this one would be a little bit more masculine this way, so I picked the plaid, and I'm just going to tie some string around the center here. And I like a big bow with long tails, so I'm going to leave that as it is right now, and then pop up my center image just right in the middle. And I'm using some Hero Arts rectangle die cuts for the middle, and then it's a My Favorite Things scalloped border for the pattern paper. And now that I have my image all set, I'm trimming up the tails on my bow, and then last popping up my sentiment right in the center there, right next to the bow. So here's the finished card with this adorable hedgehog holding on to those pretty balloons and floating along against that amazing cloud background. I decided to keep the embellishment simple, so the watercolor image is the star of this card, and you just get to really enjoy the adorableness of that hedgehog. He does have a buddy, and it's the bunny in this set, and it's basically the same technique that I used on my second card, just changed up the placement of the sentiment, and it just makes for a super cute card set if you did want to give it away. I'll have all my supplies listed below. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!